Okay, so whoever had the feeling here where you're online, you find a link or you're on, and you find you're hesitating to click on it because you think, oh, that might be recorded that I'm looking at that might look bad in the future. I think this is something that increasingly we see where people are applying a sort of self-censorship. They're becoming aware that they might be being tracked online and in other places. And you're not alone in that. I mean, there's a lot of research around Edward Snowden's revelations, which showed that people were less likely to visit Wikipedia pages after that about things like terrorism, because they were afraid that they would be tracked about that. They would be watched. And this is something called social cooling that I'm very focused on and do a lot about. So it's about self-censorship and about feeling watched all the time. And this year, the Bevrijdingsfestival, the Freedom Festival's theme was digital freedom. So we made a proposal together with the Hogeschool Rotterdam and thanks to the province of Zuid-Holland to create a number of things, including an interactive installation. And here the idea is that two people would sit on two chairs and they would both be judged by an algorithm, for example, on their beauty, on their age, whatever we wanted, whatever we could find. And the idea is that one of the people would lose and that person would get splashed with water in the face and the other person would get a Polaroid of that moment where the other person was splashed with the face as a kind of a souvenir. So that was the original plan to have something like that on the festival. So we started building some prototypes, some technology prototypes, an initial installation called Survival of the Algorithmically Attractive. And this was basically doing the same thing, was judging you, two people, and then showing them which one was the better match for a job. Of course, that was canceled with Corona as well. So we had to redo everything and start again. And that's why we decided to create an interactive documentary online about the subject. And that's How Normal Am I? Hoe normaal ben ik? A little bit of a spoiler because I'm going to talk some things about this thing, which is basically a mix of a self-test and a documentary. So one of the things you'll find in there if you click on the start button is that it'll start and it'll ask access to your camera, and it'll start, for example, by judging you on your beauty. And this is all done in your own webcam. So there's no server here. This is all done in your own system. And there's notice a small little dog there. We're going to get back to that later. But the system is going to boot up, and then it's going to judge you on a number of things, including your beauty, your age, your gender, if you're feeling happy or not, and a couple of other things. And there's a lot of small jokes in there that I don't really want to spoil yet, but so I don't want to spoil too much, but it's really worthwhile to try it out and see the jokes. I think maybe the thing's frozen or something, because it should be by the next slide by now. Okay, so here we are with beauty. I think, yeah, this is beauty. And so here the fun thing about this thing is these algorithms are, for example, in this case, designed or built by Chinese students. So it has a very Chinese slant in what it thinks is beautiful. And the thing, it also compares you to all the Dutch parliament members to see how many of them you've beat in your beauty score. So it was a lot of fun to look at all the parliament members and see their scores. And not even George Clooney gets higher than an 8.2 on this algorithm, which is a lot of interesting things to see. Another thing you'll find out is that during the time you can ask what your age is. Would you share your age? And if you do, then you see another feature of this documentary, which is it kind of shows you what other people have done in this exact documentary. So, for example, here you see how many people have shared their age with the documentary, which is something you can do at the end of it. You can share your anonymous data. And it keeps comparing you. And here you see how it's also comparing, looking at your expression, whether or not you're happy or not, or sad. And that's a serious thing because increasingly we see software like this one. It's a HireVue, this software that is used by Unilever to look at job candidates and then select them based on what an algorithm thinks they are, if they are happy people or good people. They're trying to do this stuff. So it's real stuff. And where did you get all these algorithms? Well, you can just find them on GitHub and online. They're available. The real interesting question is, what didn't we show? Because we thought it would go too far. So you can find crazy stuff on GitHub. So this is an example where you can find some person's BMI. So you can look at someone's face, picture, and then figure out their BMI from that. A more far out example is this company called Faceception, which tries to analyze whether or not you're a criminal or all kinds of things based on your face. You see another example, which is something that we could have done, but we didn't do, which was to look at your ethnicity and figure out, or as they say, your race in the scene. But you can go further. Like you can find out, or they say, someone's sexual preference and stuff like that. So a lot of things are being deduced from our faces. And the strange thing is, like, the more I know about this stuff, the more I feel watched online, but also in daily life, everywhere. I get this feeling that our digital world is making me feel very watched. And of course, our politicians say, well, we should all gain some more awareness of the technology, and that will help us, deal with it better. But I think there's a big paradox there, which is the more we become aware of this technology and what it's doing, the more we are feeling watched, and the more we might apply self-censorship again, and then we might see these chilling effects, right, where we're hesitant to do things because we think, well, I might be judged on this. Maybe I shouldn't tweet this because it'll be judged by some algorithm later on. That's the reality that we live in increasingly, and I wonder what's going to happen in the future when more and more people realize that, and what that's going to do to our society. So that's what our project on freedom was about. It was like a lecture and these installations and student challenges and design challenges to explore this idea of what it does with us to feel watched all the time, which I think, we're talking a lot about how Cambridge Analytica is all about, trying to influence you from outside. But I think the real interesting thing is how we are trying to influence ourselves from inside, how we are applying self-censorship in knowing that all this is going on. I think that's, for me, something that we should talk about more.
Thank you, Tijmen. Super interesting. And I also tried your website. It was, if everyone who didn't do it yet, you should do it, because it
absolutely
gives you even more awareness of this, what the technology does.
There's some good news as well. There's going to be an English translation.
Good. I was wondering about that. Yeah, good. A friend of mine who's originally comes from Iran, he tried to do the test as well, but the facial recognition algorithm didn't recognize his face. How does that work?
Yeah, well, that's the issue. These things are very dependent on how you train them, on which images you train them.
Yeah.
So, for example, these algorithms are notoriously bad at recognizing Black people's faces, because they're often a smaller subset of the pictures they're used to train these algorithms. That's one of these things where you see that these things are not neutral; they're very culturally created. Like the example I said of, if you let hundreds of students rate pictures on beauty, they will. A Chinese idea of what beauty is will seep into the algorithm, and if you only train algorithm on certain pictures, then that algorithm will train to see that type of person, like white people, easier, for example. So it's very culturally constructed, and that's something that I've wanted to show with this project. It very much reveals how it is. So it doesn't just let you play with these algorithms, but I talk about how these things are culturally constructed and how we should be aware of that. So it's also educational in that sense.
Yeah, and just for my own understanding, so the algorithm that you use for this website is slightly different, of course, than the facial recognition algorithm of Facebook, for instance, or.
But I don't know. There are a lot of these algorithms online. So we often say, well, people have to make these algorithms work better by retraining them on better data sets, and that is a solution. But the problem is that most companies don't build their own algorithms. They just get them off the shelf from other companies who make them, and they have an interest to make them as general as possible. So it's not really an easy solution. So by myself using these off-the-shelf algorithms that I just scraped and scavenged online, I kind of want to show this issue of I have no idea. I have no idea how this algorithm works, how it was trained. I just have to trust that it's okay, but it's absolutely, as you can tell from your friend, it rarely, there's a lot of things wrong with it.
Yeah. Question. We got a lot of questions from the audience, actually. Question from Evelyn. Which member of parliament was more handsome than George Clooney?
I am not allowed. I already it was very dubious of me to show you that clip of the members of parliament, because that is, there's an interesting question is someone's beauty score of member of parliament, is that personal information, or is it an opinion? And in America they say that this kind of data is an opinion, and then it's not your data, it's their data. But in Europe it's different, so it was a bit of a dubious thing to do. But there's one member of parliament who's really ugly, and I can say, for example, Geert Wilders is more attractive than the guy from GroenLinks.
Jes Klaver?
Yes, he's more attractive than Jes Klaver by 0.1 point. So that's interesting.
Geert Wilders?
Yeah, he's more attractive, according to the algorithm, which is made by Chinese people. So
and Thierry Baudet?
I have no idea. I could look it up, but I won't.
We should test it ourselves then, maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun things you can do with this.
Ken2 asks, what are your thoughts on the Corona tracking app?
Don't get me started. I'm not too worried about the corona tracking app because it'll fail. No one's going to do this. Not enough people are going to do this. The app is mostly to keep politicians happy and give them a sense that they're doing something. What I am more worried about is the government trying to access anonymous data from cell towers and from cell service providers. That is really dubious because this data is not as anonymous as they like to think. And I could talk your ears off about why anonymous data doesn't really exist anymore nowadays. And that's mostly to do with how it's so easy to connect different data sets that if you have one anonymous data set and you connect to another, it can become re-identified. And there's a lot more about that, but yeah, that's really dubious. So yeah, that's more dubious for me.
All right. Question from Carl: how do you deal with the feeling that someone else is always there?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Like it's there for me always. Like I'm sitting in front of a bookcase right now, and this bookcase is a unique pattern in the world. Like there's no other place in the world that has this pattern. So you could, if you find another picture, if you have an algorithm look around all the pictures in the world, you could find all the other pictures of my house if they have the bookcase on it as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm very aware that everything in my house, in my life, is a unique pattern visually that can be, retracked and retraced. And my face has a unique fingerprint, and I can look it up in all the photos in all the world. And there are some companies now in America that do this. So yeah, I am astounded by how easy it is to track people and how little people know. And I'm pretty sure they will start to learn about this in the next coming years. And I'm worried, as I said, about what will happen when people know.
Yeah. Should we stop with facial? Like, what can we do?
That's something that you can definitely do. So often with technology, we say, we get this feeling from Silicon Valley that you can't stop it. But yes, you can stop it. You can totally. It's a political thing. We've stopped technology so many times in the past, with nuclear energy, for example. So yes, you can stop it. And in America, a lot of states are now, and cities are actually banning public facial recognition. So yes, I think that's one of the things where America is actually, in some cases, giving a good example. I think we should do the same thing here. There's also some European Parliament members who are saying we should. So we should ban face recognition stuff in public space. I think that would be a really smart move, not just because of the implications of what it could do, but because of how people will feel with the idea that it's there.
Yeah. Okay. Super interesting, Tijmen. Thank you for your presentation.
You're very welcome.
Have a nice evening.
You too.